Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, Text 38. Atmanaha Avashitaha Vatsa Atmano Vashito Vassa Mahima Kavina Adhina Mahima Kavina Adhina Samvatsara Sahasrante Samvatsara Sahasrante Dhiya Yoga Vipakkaya Dhiya Yoga Vipakkaya Atmano Vasito Vatsa Mahima Kavinadhina Samvatsara Sahasrante Dhiya Yoga Vipakkaya. Atmano Vasito Vatsa Kavinadhina Bhaktas. Atmano Vasito Bhakta Mahima Kavinadhina Samvatsara Sahasrante Ya Yoga Vipakkaya. Atmanaha, of the Supreme Soul, Avasitaha, known, Vatsa, O my dear son, Mahima, glories, Kavina, by the poet Brahma, Adhina, original, Samvatsara, celestial years, Sahasra Ante, at the end of 1000, Dhiya, by intelligence, Yoga Vipakkaya, by matured meditation. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swamy Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O my son, the original poet Brahma, after mature meditation for 1000 celestial years, could know only that the glories of the Supreme Soul are inconceivable. Please repeat. O my son, the original poet Brahma, after mature meditation for 1000 celestial years, could know only that the glories of the Supreme Soul are inconceivable. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are some froggish philosophers who want to know the Supreme Soul by means of philosophy and mental speculation. And when the devotees, who are to some extent in knowledge of the Supreme Lord, admit that the glories of the Lord are inestimable, are inconceivable, the froggish philosophers adversely criticize them. These philosophers, like the frog in the well, who try to estimate the measurement of the Pacific Ocean, like to take trouble over fruitless mental speculation instead of taking instructions from devotees like the original poet, namely Brahma. Lord Brahma underwent a severe type of meditation for 1000 celestial years, yet he said that the glories of the Lord are inconceivable. Therefore, what can the froggish philosophers hope to gain from their mental speculations? It is said in the Brahma Samhita that the mental speculator may fly through the sky of speculation with the velocity of the mind or the wind for thousands of millions of years, and still he will find it inconceivable. The devotees, however, do not waste time in such vain searching after the knowledge of the Supreme, but they submissively hear the glories of the Lord from bona fide devotees. Thus they transcendently enjoy the process of hearing and chanting. The Lord approves of the devotional activities of the devotees or Mahatmas, and he says, Mahatmanastumam padha daivim prakritim ashrita bhajanti ananya manaso jnatva bhutadim avyayam satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha drudavrata namasyatyascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. The pure devotees of the Lord take shelter of the para prakriti or the internal potency of the Lord, called Lakshmi Devi, Sita Devi, Srimati Radharani or Srimati Rukmini Devi, and thus they become actual Mahatmas or great souls. Mahatmas are not fond of indulging in mental speculations, but they actually take to the devotional service of the Lord without the slightest deviation. Devotional service is manifested by the primary process of hearing and chanting about the activities of the Lord. This transcendental method, practiced by the Mahatmas, gives them sufficient knowledge of the Lord, because if the Lord can at all be known to some extent, it is only through the means of devotional service and no other way. One may go on speculating and waste the valuable time of his human life, but that will not help anyone to enter into the precincts of the Lord. The Mahatmas, however, are not concerned with knowing the Lord by mental speculation, because they enjoy hearing about his glorious activities in his transcendental dealings with his devotees or with the demons. The devotees take pleasure in both and are happy in this life and the life after. Dasanasta Bhaktivedanta Parpoto Madhyanatimiran Dasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Ena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padayam Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The glories of the Supreme Soul are explained in this verse. Atmanaha means the Supreme Soul, and Brahma, he has performed meditation for Samvatsara Sahasrante, thousands of 1000 celestial years, Sahasra, and at the end of it, actually Brahma is not ordinary, he is Kavina Adina, the original poet, and he, at the end of that meditation, Diya Yoga Vipakkaya. Yoga Vipakkaya means matured meditation. Very, using his Diya, his intelligence, he has performed a mature meditation. And then he concluded that the Mahima, the glories of the Supreme Soul, are inconceivable. They are called Achintya, are inconceivable. So Prabhupada is explaining here, the devotees are the ones who can understand to some extent about the glories of the Lord. Only devotees. Bhaktyamam abhijanati. So this janati If one wants to know Krishna, then the process is that he has to become a devotee. Otherwise, he may go on doing what is known as speculation, mental speculation, but he will not be able to understand what is Supreme, whether the Supreme has a form, or what exactly is his qualities or nature. These things will be impossible. So, mental speculation means somebody, go on thinking what is the reality, what is the source of all this, what is the Supreme. He has no idea what is the final conclusion. He wanted to reach that final conclusion. And so, he goes on speculating. Generally, they use their own experience to speculate. Like for example, they see that in this world, all forms are deteriorating. All human form or any other material form you take, they all deteriorate and finally they get annihilated. So one theory is that Supreme must be formless, because Supreme has to be eternal, it has to be permanent. Matter, material forms are all temporary, so superior form has to be Jai Radha Govinda. So the Supreme form has to be eternal, so that means it must be formless. This is one of the conclusions this mental speculator will come to. That means based on their experience, they are seeing what is happening all around them. Based on their experience, they try to infer or argue a certain conclusion. Every these mental speculators, they have their own argument, how they have arrived at a certain conclusion. So they argue that the Supreme Soul has no form. When I was in Vijayawada, we went and met one family, a donor family. We were showing the design. There is a tower and all those designs. So that husband is he is excited looking at the designs and all that. But Mataji has some doubts. She said, Swamiji, I wanted to ask you one question. It may look a little odd, but I wanted to ask you, why such big temples? You can have a small temple and then, why hundreds of crores or, so many crores? God is not expecting, so why you should do it? This is their, she is worried. And then we were discussing. Looks like she also knows about some Paramatma stuff. So she is also quoting some Paramatma. Who spoke Bhagavad Gita? Paramatma. And Paramatma, like that she is saying. So I am happy that at least she is talking about Paramatma. Then I asked her, what do you think about Paramatma? She is saying, we cannot explain. It is inexplainable. It is Nirakar, Aghada, deep, and like that, all-pervading light, all those things she is saying. So, mostly she has some guru, and that guru is also mostly topmost mental speculator, and that's the conclusion that he could arrive at. So, And she also doesn't know that there is an Atma separate from Paramatma. Most of these philosophers, they don't know. And when we explain to her that Atma has a form, a beautiful form, an effulgent form, she got shocked. And I said, if Atma has a form, Paramatma also has a form. That is also very shocking. How can you say, Swamiji, that Atma has a form? So that's the individuality of the Atma is explained by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Natvevaham jatunasham natvam neme janadipa. In his very second sloka, he establishes that the Atma has individuality. After assuming the role of Guru, the very second sloka, Krishna establishes that Arjuna is not the body and the Atma has individuality. Now these things are impossible to figure out on our own. Whether Atma is there or not, and whether Atma has individuality, he has a form, very, very difficult to estimate. Mental speculation means it's a gambling. You are arguing, logic, reasoning, and finally where you end up, nobody knows. You may end up in some conclusion and get attached to that conclusion. That's why Brahma Samhita explains, Pantastu koti satavashara sampragamyo vayorathapi manasa munipungavana. Very interesting concepts are explained in the Vedic literature to understand that how this method of figuring out ourselves, direct perception or argument or logic, how this is insufficient. Everything cannot be understood by logic and reason. There are some achintya khalu e bhava. There are some inconceivable subject matters are there. You cannot figure out everything. It has to be understood in a different way. Otherwise, one may travel on an aeroplane at the speed of mind. So that means in the mind you can go on very fast, you conclude, go on traveling, conclude. But still you will not be able to reach what is the truth. Particularly you will not be able to reach what is the absolute truth. In fact, any truth you will not be able. This is gambling. That's why mental speculation considered one of the gamblings. And it breaks the regulative principles. So that's why one has to be careful to hear from the authority. The progress in Krishna consciousness or spiritual life is directly proportionate to how much you hear from the authoritative sources. Here, like Prabhupada is explaining that one should approach a personality like Kavina Adina, the original poet, like Brahma, and then hear from him. So, this is the most intelligent way of acquiring knowledge. Otherwise, if we are heavily dependent on what we can experience through our senses, then most of these aspects we will not be able to understand. So that's why Prabhupada is quoting from Brahma Samhita that it is inconceivable even after you think for millions of years. What is that supreme truth? There is one more place it is mentioned that maybe you will be able to calculate all the atoms in this universe. You break down the whole universal thing into small atoms, and maybe you will be able to figure out, you can count You can estimate the number of atoms in the universe, but still you will not be able to estimate the glories of the Lord. Will not be able to estimate. For example, it is mentioned that, say, in the spiritual world, everything is conscious. Everything is conscious. The table is conscious. Pillars are conscious. They are living personalities. Now, who can understand? There, the trees also walk. They move. Whatever they want, they can do. Now, who can understand this? Because they cannot understand by their own experience. Here we don't see trees moving around. Imagine one tree is walking by along with you. You don't see that. So that's why they say, no, this is all, we cannot believe this, all mythology. They are called froggish philosophers. They are based on their experience. They try to understand what is the truth. So then Prabhupada distinguishes two kinds of devotees, two kinds of categories. One is these mental speculators, and one more category is Mahatmas. Mental speculators, they are dependent on their mental capacity, their arguing capacity, their logical capacities. And the other ones are called Mahatmas. They are dependent on, they have taken Daivim Prakriti Mashrita. They have taken shelter of this Daivi Prakriti, and they are not interested in this mental speculation. And what are they interested in? Satatam Kirtayanto Mam Yatantascha Drudavrata Namasyantascha Mam Bhaktya Nitya Yukta Upasate. They are always engaged in devotional service. Nitya Yukta Upasate. Always engaged in worshipping the Supreme Lord, and they are Drudavrata, very determined. Druda, very strong vrata. They have taken a very strong vrata, and then what they do, whole day they will be thinking about the Lord. Hearing and chanting. Chanting and hearing. So that's why it is mentioned here, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. They are not interested in mental speculations. They are not interested in rumors. They are not interested in gossip. They are interested in what they have heard from the spiritual master, from the authority. That's what they are interested in. They don't even have any inclination for some information which is not verified, which is not coming from a bona fide source. They are not interested. They are not interested in that kind of a gossip, matter of gossip. They are purely interested in how to bring Krishna into their conversations. Devotees are eager to connect. They want to bring Krishna into their conversation. They are not interested in unverified, useless, speculative stuff. That's why the speculative conclusions are very dangerous. So we should give up that habit. Sthane sthita shrutikatam tanuvan manobi. Brahmaji also, he gave this verdict that we should give up this habit of speculation. Everything we want to directly experience, or by our logic we want to conclude. This is not a proper method. One should seek what is the truth. They have to hear. So, whenever you get any information, your first step should be to verify. First step is not believe. You should verify and then see whether the source is correct, accurate. And if it is something connected to other Vaishnavas, some information connected to other Vaishnavas, one has to be very careful. He should not speculate about other Vaishnavas, other people, other devotees. So then, there won't be any offenses. Otherwise, unnecessarily, we will fall into this trap and commit offenses. And the first offenses to the Harinam is this offense of speculating on the Vaishnavas who are spreading holy name. So we have to always connect everything to Krishna. Always look from the perspective of Krishna consciousness. That is the safest way. We have heard from the spiritual master how to do all these things, and we have to implement on a day-to-day basis. So then he will become Mahatma. Otherwise, one will remain a mental speculator and doesn't reach anywhere, doesn't understand what is the truth. Any questions? Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.